Well, for more on this, let's go to someone who's been on the front lines of this battle, Ambassador Bill Richardson. He's the former Democratic governor of New Mexico, a border state, of course, and former United States ambassador to the United Nations. Governor, Ambassador, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, we'll talk to you in a moment about North Korea, but first, your reaction to this new caravan effort.
Well, I think we're a nation of laws, and your previous guest very sensibly talked about we are subject to an international covenant on asylum. I think we have to look at each of these cases, case by case, individually. You know, these people are fleeing, mainly women and children. There are some activists from political turmoil in El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua. I mean, there are headlines saying that many of their lives are in danger. But I think we are a nation of laws. And what we have to do is respect each case and not get overrun just because there's a crowd. I have some port of entries in New Mexico. I've been a border governor, as you mentioned. I've dealt with these issues. I think you have to deal with them within the law. And that's what I sense the Homeland Security people are doing. But if there's a legitimate case, Eric, of somebody fleeing for political persecution or the fact that they may be targeted for murder, then I think that's a sensible case. But then there are others that don't qualify. It's a very narrow standard, as your previous guest mentioned.
Yeah, I've been down to Sunland Park, right there in the little bitty corner where you got the river, and you can just see, you can't step over, or you shouldn't. That's illegal. We're told not to. But the critics, as you heard, say that they think it's a political stunt by activists maybe coaching some of these people. Yet supporters say it does spotlight exactly what you just raised. What is your concern about those critics who think this may be too much?
Well, it's an annual event, you know, and on both sides, there's activists. There's activists that don't want to see this happen. There's activists, mainly, I suspect, attorneys, that want to spotlight the issue. This is why I think, Eric, the law has to be observed. And I think we have enough Border Patrol agents, we have enough technology to be able to deal with this. I mean, the reality, I can tell you the illegal immigration has slowed down in border states. This Central American immigration is the one that is increasing. But I think it's being looked at as a political football. You know, the president, every time he gets a chance to talk about the wall or this, you know, he just inflames things. And I know you don't want to hear that, but that's my concern.
All right, now let's now go to another border. While this is going on, man, did you see that videotape? And you had been in North Korea. You've negotiated with them personally. What did you think of Kim Jong-Un and President Moon of South Korea holding hands? I mean, you know, kind of walking back and forth between the borders. Do you think this is genuine? Do you think Kim is being sincere? Do you think he really wants to potentially surrender his nuclear program?
Well, I was very, very overwhelmed and pleased and impressed. I'd never seen that. Both leaders stepping into each other's territory, lessening of tensions, both countries watching the events so closely. That is very good. I've dealt with the North Koreans. They've got something up their sleeve, but so far, you got to hand it to Kim Jong-Un and the South Korean president. And I think President Trump has made some good moves, too, basically saying they're going to shut down their nuclear reactor. They're ready to denuclearize. The devil's in the details. There's no timeline from this summit. There's no specificity. I'm just worried that Kim Jong-un right now, he's winning the PR battle, but we've got to be very conscious that denuclearization for us, Eric, means differently what he means. For us, it means dismantling all their nuclear weapons, and then they get some benefits. For the North Koreans, basically, denuclearization means a freeze. They're going to curb their existing use. So there's a lot of issues to negotiate that are still on the table that are going to be very difficult to negotiate. But I think it's the right thing to do. The summit is good. It's moving in the right direction.
The summit is good, as you say. What should the president do? I mean, today, this morning on Fox News Sunday, John Bolton said basically if he doesn't agree to denuclearize, there possibly would not be a meeting. Should the president say, look, you have to give up your nukes, so I'm not going to meet you? Or should the president meet him and then say you got to give up your nukes?
No. You know, he's not going to change his negotiating style. I had hoped he just listened to his new Secretary of State, let him handle this. But that's not going to happen. Look, this summit is good. It should happen regardless. I think Kim Jong-un has made enough positive statements that it's worth taking a chance. All I'm saying is the president and his team need to be prepared. They need to get the 3 Americans out. They need to get the remains of our soldiers out. They need also to focus on exactly what denuclearization means. Stop some of the missile tests that go into the United States. Stop some of the technology, some of the chemical weapons that go into Syria, missile and other exports, nuclear exports. But I think South Korea has done a good job in paving the way. You know, they're the ones, Eric, right on the front lines. You've been there, too. 25 million South Koreans facing an artillery, a conventional attack. The fact that this summit took place, I know people are critics. Is it going to work? You know, at least for the time being, tension has been eased. These two shook hands. Who knows what Kim Jong-un's up to? We got to watch him. There has to be real verification, real in any agreement, real oversight. We've got to inspect all their sites, all their weapons. Some are hidden. Well, actually, most are hidden. So it's going to be a very interesting, but I got to say, it's never been as good as it has, at least hopefulness. And I've been involved in this issue a long time.
And that's certainly encouraging. Finally, quickly, Otto Warmbier, the young 22-year-old University of Virginia young student who was basically tortured and murdered, brought back brain dead. Here, Kim Jong-un matches the time of daylight savings time, basically, to South Korea. Should the president bring Otto's case to Kim Jong-un to prosecute his killers in North Korea?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was involved in that. My foundation tried to get Otto out, and we offered all kinds of things, not as official negotiators. Yeah, the North Koreans owe an explanation. What happened to Otto? Why did he come back virtually dead after a year? Why wasn't he given proper medical treatment? I think there has to be some accountability. And the family, who I know, very good people, Cindy and Fred Warmbier, filed a lawsuit. I think that has to go through a due process. But I think at the very least, the North Koreans should make a very concrete decision never to apprehend another American. And there are 3 Americans that are there right now, apprehended, that should be released.
We should not forget Otto and the 3 Americans who are there, as well as talking about the potential denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Governor and Ambassador Bill Richardson from New Mexico this afternoon. Thank you for seeing us, as always.